Hi everyone, and welcome to my new channel in English, and I will be posting now all my new videos in English on this channel, so make sure to subscribe and hit the bell button to get notified when I post a video, and also to get notified when I post via the community tab. Sometimes I have messages or texts that come to me and I would like to share them with you, so if you would like to be notified for that, please just click the bell. So in this video I'll be talking about duality. So a lot of people say that there is currently a war between light and darkness on this planet. Some others say that duality is kind of an illusion. So what is true in all of that? Well, I would like to say that it's all true, actually. There is currently what we could call a kind of war between light and dark. And also we are on, as a collective, as a human collective, on the way to transcend this duality. And as you've noticed in the past months, there are a lot of big events and sometimes negative events happening. And I was thinking, for example, about what happened to Notre Dame and the fire there. And I noticed when this happened that some of the people were focusing only on the shadow aspect of it, so the conspiracy around it, etc. I'm not saying that this is not real, that it does not exist, but what I'm saying is that now, in this period in time, we have to take a step back and see things from a different perspective, and see things like in a more global perspective. Because what is hiding behind darkness or the dark side? Well, there is also consciousness. It is also the divine that is in action. So we can really see that everything is interconnected and that in a way everything is divine. I'm going to share with you my personal experience during these past months, and it's true that I'm not someone who especially likes to talk about private or personal things, especially publicly. But I am aware that when I do share personal experiences, it is much more powerful than to just speak about spiritual concepts that sometimes can seem a little abstract. So this is why I'm going to share this with you. So since the end of 2018, I've been through a very powerful process of, let's say, a death and rebirth process, where I am taken deeper and deeper into the layers of my ego, of my human identity, to dismantle all these parts of me, but also to integrate them. So I've been constantly seeing deeper and deeper stuff. And of course, this whole process is a process of transformation. It is a process of activation, of purification, and also a kind of initiation, and you will understand why in a minute. So, I've been talking about 2019 as the year of the light body activation for light workers, and in this process, so the activation of the light body is what is actually the soul is stepping into our bodies fully, and the soul is coming forward. But in order for the soul to come forward, everything that is not us, our false identity, needs to die. And this can be a very, very painful process, because in my experience, anything that I would still cling on to externally would be systematically ripped off, and I was always taking deeper and deeper and deeper to feel things from within. So a lot of things that I thought were already resolved, I actually noticed that there were these deeper layers that were still there. And for example, a couple of months ago when I recorded my video about inner child healing, so I programmed that video, and that was really important for me because this is really a subject that is dear to my heart, so I wanted to do it in the best conditions possible. So on the day I was filming it, I was centered, I was concentrated, I did my yoga, my meditation, everything was fine. And I don't know what happened, because it usually never happens, I usually never do that. But there's something that led me to go on Facebook just before I start filming. And there on Facebook there was a link that I clicked, and it was a channeling. And as soon as I arrived on that website, I felt there was this huge negative wave that invaded my being. So I clicked off immediately, and then I went to film my video. But the problem was that once I was in front of the camera, I was unable to concentrate. I was unable to follow my train of thoughts, even though it's a subject that I know by heart. And so as the time went by, I got more and more frustrated because I had to start all over again and again and again. And I thought, damn, I'm going to have to film this another day. I don't have time for this. And I started feeling really angry. But I thought, okay, I'm going to do this till the end. I'm going to film this. I'm going to edit this. And after editing the video, I actually noticed that the result was more or less acceptable. So I thought, okay. But after I finished the work that evening, I just collapsed completely emotionally. And for the first time of my life, I felt that my nervous system was shaking, but literally shaking, as if there was a predator on me all the time. And I went really, really, really down emotionally, and I understood at this moment that I had been parasited through the link I clicked, and this state that it put me in actually lasted for a couple of days. So I actually had to disconnect from everything, from the internet, from my social life, from everything, just to be with myself, because I was in such a state of deep trauma. It was really felt like trauma. And of course I understood that not only was I parasited, but it was a kind of direct psychic attack that was specifically targeted on me at this specific moment where I wanted to share something that was dear to my heart. But as I know that every time we are victims of psychic attacks, it's always there to show us something that is still unresolved within ourselves. And the thing that it went to pinpoint inside me was this feeling of not being legitimate to do this work, and this feeling of being a fraud that I also thought was something I already resolved, but apparently it was not completely. So by clicking on this link, it's exactly when you're on the computer and you click on the link, and then the computer gets a virus and then it messes up with your entire computer system. That's exactly what it was happening, but inside my being, on an energy level, emotional level, and I couldn't function properly. And this actually generated a lot of anger, but not towards the people who sent me this attack, or not towards the shadow in general. I had really this anger inside me against the divine, because I thought, damn, I'm just, you know, I do really things in a heart-centered way. I'm here to serve, I'm here to help, and why are you taking me down and down to hell, you know, because I was really going through hell emotionally. So sometimes when I hit rock bottom, I asked for spiritual help, and that's what I did, and the entity that came to me was Isis. And actually Isis, I didn't have so many interactions with her before, only once during a shamanic ceremony. So I've been more in contact with Mother Mary, for example, even though I always felt that Isis was in the background. And for those of you who ask me why I use the name Isis, it's because it's my soul name. And this is some information that I got like 8 or 9 years ago when I was doing my training in hypnosis, when I did the Michael Newton Life Between Lives protocol. That's the name that came up, and at the time I didn't quite understand why. But now I know that it is because my soul is connected to the stream of consciousness that is connected with Isis and with the Divine Mother. So Isis came to me and she started talking to me, and she has the most softest and sweetest voice and energy, and she said, "My dear child, you're my child, you're my daughter, and I have many daughters and sons." And she said that I was going through an initiation that I've already experienced in past lives. And then she showed me, I saw myself in this really dark tunnel, this underground tunnel, and I understood that it was under a pyramid. And I was holding a torch. It was completely dark, and from both sides I saw frightening faces coming out of the darkness, shouting at me or smearing me. And I asked Isis if those were the demons of the mind, and she said, "Let's call them ghosts of the past." In ancient times, an initiation, especially in Egypt, was experienced in total darkness, and we would experience not only lower astral entities, but also we were confronted with our mind, with our struggling ego, until we surrender and we touch the void within, and that's exactly what happened to me. So when a part of the mind and the ego is going to die, the voices in the head become so present and so strong that we feel we are actually going completely nuts. It is the ego that fights for its survival before the final letting go of dissolution and death. And Isis showed me at the end of the tunnel there was this great big room, golden room, with a golden throne, and there was an open ceiling that exposed the intense blue of the sky. And she said, as dark and intense as the night is, the sun always rises at dawn. And then she showed me my reflection in a mirror, and this mirror broke into 1,000 pieces. And she said, that reflection of you in the mirror is not you, it's not you anymore. The mirror bursts to reveal the diamond inside your being, which is the light of your soul. And there I had a vision of my soul. I had this very bright white light surrounded in gold, and I could see that it was emanating from the center of my heart. And she said, a mirror is fragile and it can easily break. A diamond is unwavering, unbreakable, and eternal. So this is like a metaphor used to talk about our temporary identity and our soul. And she also asked me, where do you place authority within you? And this is where I realized that very often we are kind of putting the authority outside of ourselves, whether it's to someone or something. And as we do that, we give our power away. And it is not also rare that we actually attribute parental qualities to the divine, as in, for example, if we do something good, we will be rewarded. If we do something bad, we will be punished. But these are not spiritual truths. These are just human perceptions, and these are attributes that we give to reality and to the divine, but they are not spiritual truths. So Isis asked me that question so I could put my authority back into the hands of my soul. And of course I thanked her for her visit and for the dialogue, and I asked her if she could also offer me her protection for the times to come, and she said okay. And so I felt better after that. A couple of days later I was called for a second round apparently, and I did a kind of spontaneous regression to a past lifetime I had in Egypt. So I have many past lives in Egypt, but this one was really a particular one. And I've always felt very connected to Egypt since childhood. It was really one of my dreams to go there, and I did actually travel there 18 months ago. And on the third day after arriving there, we visited the Valley of the Kings and the tombs. And while I was inside one of the tombs, I started having a very strong migraine, pain all over my body, and that evening I was in bed with heavy fever under the blankets and just shaking and sweating and just thinking I'm going to die here. And the information I got was that my body was reconnecting with on a cellular level to heavy memories of violence and traumas that I went through in Egypt. And the only information I got was that I was buried alive. And this lasted for like 10 days. I was sick. I've never been that sick in my whole life, I think. And I really had to take some medication so I could at least stand up and continue some of the visits. So it was a little bit traumatic, I have to say. And so what I experienced in this second round a couple of months ago was like the second chapter of that. But this time it was on an emotional level, not on a physical level, and I also got to see and get all the information connected to that past lifetime. So in this particular lifetime I was initiated as a priestess of Isis, and I carried a lot of spiritual knowledge with me, and the king or the pharaoh at the time wanted to take advantage of this spiritual knowledge. He wanted it for himself, and I refused to give it to him. So he ordered my torture, humiliation, and he also raped me because he thought that through the sexual intercourse he would get the energy. So I saw myself like in a really, really bad state in the desert with the pyramids a bit further away, and I was starting to die. I was starting to feel that I was getting out of my body, which I did, and I started ascending to the higher spiritual realms, and I saw the spiral of light, big lights, and two guardians next to the spiral. And I, of course, wanted to enter this light, and the guardian said, no, it's not your time yet. And I said, what do you mean it's not my time yet? They almost tried to kill me, and I'm dead now, I'm not going back, they're going to kill me anyway. They said, no, you have to go back, you have to continue your life. So I was really upset, but I had no choice. I did go back, so I went all the way down, back to the body, and this time I saw myself in a deep, dark hole, where I was waiting for my punishment or whatever. And this actually, I remember it superimposed with another memory I had of a lifetime during the Middle Ages, where I was also a woman during the Inquisition, and I was kind of also whipped or whatever was happening there. And when I saw myself in this black hole again, I really felt a lot of anger towards the divine again. I was like, why the hell are you putting me through this all? I am here to serve the light, I'm here to bring more consciousness to the planet. Why do you have to take me back to hell? And as I was feeling this anger and this pain and this whole traumatic experience, I started to feel that there was only one way out. And the only way out was to actually find acceptance of it all. And this acceptance could only be found within me. So I started accepting it, and then I started feeling a bit more peaceful. And then I saw that eventually they did bury me alive, but this time I didn't feel any fear, any anger, or any anxiety. I just felt this peace. And I saw that after they buried me, a couple of hours later, I actually left my body, but in a peaceful way. And then I ascended again to the spiritual realms, and I saw that when I arrived there, they put me in a kind of a fountain of regeneration for healing, because my body and my whole being went through so much and so many traumatic things in that lifetime that I really needed to be healed. And then they took me to a kind of classroom where I would be able to tell my experience to other souls that were ready to incarnate on Earth. Through this experience, I was really at the heart of the experience of duality. And what we understand through this experience is that what we perceive as dark outside of ourselves, and this kind of war there is between light and dark, is actually a war that is present within ourselves. It is a war that we kind of have between our ego, our human identity, and our soul. And the only way out of this war is to find acceptance, because it's not when we struggle and when we fight that we can go beyond and transcend that aspect. And it is only through the language of our soul, which is the language of acceptance and love, that we can transcend this whole duality. So instead of projecting this darkness outside or pointing fingers at things outside of us, outside of ourselves, it is important really to find this compassion and this love and this acceptance for it all. And we do that by accepting our own dark side, our own shadow first. And the thing we must understand is that the shadow actually serves the divine. Our ego serves the divine. Our shadow self serves the divine, because without the ego there could not be the experience of awakening or the experience of enlightenment. Without the shadow we could not follow this process and this path of returning home while still staying in a physical body, which is also called mindfulness or the state of samadhi. And after I had these experiences that I just told you, I went on the other side of the scale, the other extreme, and I actually experienced for several days a kind of taste of what it is to be in that state of samadhi, which is a state of really complete inner peace and bliss. And you can really feel that your mind is calm, there is no more identification with anything, there is only this peace, this bliss, and this contemplative nature. I understood why I had to re-experience this pain and this trauma, not only for my own personal journey, but also because it resonates with the collective, and it especially resonates with light workers. Because as light workers, we all carry these memories of persecution for sharing our light, for sharing our truth, or just showing ourselves as we are. And this, because we carry these memories on a cellular level, sometimes we feel fear and anxiety or resistance to actually be who we truly are and to share our truth. So what I wanted to say to all the light workers on earth right now is that when we transcend this past, when we accept it and we integrate this whole thing and all these lifetimes of persecution, then we realize that this time we came back at this precise point in time on earth, in this human evolution, where we can finally share our light without being vilified, without being killed or persecuted, and we can stand really firm in our ground. And I encourage you really to stand in your light now, and I can assure you that together we will transform this planet. Sat Nam.